everyone, this is Keith Scott from Melbourne, Sydney, Australia. I'm one of the voices of Blue Energy Loose. It's time to watch Relentless and Unstoppable. And so give it up for your main hosts, Douglas Kelly and Andy McPhee.
Having to
Yeah.
overcome everything.
Yeah, life has been pretty good so far with the residential home. Before that, though, and even to this day, part of a huge part of my journey is Andy McPhee.
Oh yeah, I've seen about it, but I don't yeah, I don't know, I don't know much about him and his much more than the fact that he's from Australia, and I've seen him as your co-host and some of these, but how did you meet, and how did what's your relationship with him?
This goes back to Estes Park. You see, when we were in fifth grade, do you remember in science when we had to work on science experiments for that fair, that science fair that they hosted?
I think so, yeah.
This was in fifth grade, I believe, if I'm recalling right. You see, Andy McPhee was already an established actor at the time, although he's a former wrestler. And, originally, for those who don't know, including Jorge, he's originally from Melbourne in Australia, but so far people knew he was only Australian so far. But Andy made a career in WOA, which is Australian wrestling, and then he transitioned into acting through a Hungry Jack's commercial, which in Australia is Burger King, basically. And so what happened was, you see, he was already known in Estes at the time for his mentorship that he did with younger actors or just people in general. And I already knew who he was, but then in 2008, when we were in the middle, when we were in the middle of those science projects, I was partnered with Cassidy Glassman, and
Hmm.
that was before she moved as well. And she was doing mentorship with Andy McPhee at the time. And while we were in the middle of our project, which was a rocket balloon, she got a phone call. And I remember her picking it up and taking a break. And I overheard the Australian voice on the other line. And I just remember hearing the name Andy. And then she hung up and just moved on. And we carried on with our project. But then a couple years later, my brother, who was going to be a singer at first and wanted to get into the singing profession before he decided to pursue other avenues, he selected Andy McPhee to be his mentor. And when I first heard about it, and when I saw his first Zoom conference with Andy, it became obvious to me that Cassidy was speaking with Andy because the voice was
Hmm.
the same and I remember the name. And this was like 2 or 3 years after it happened. And so from then on, I heard about how Andy was an actor and how he was in Saving Mr. Banks and The Condemned and Animal Kingdom. And then I heard about his young son, Kodi, whom I met just once over a Zoom meeting and then established communication on Instagram with. He went on to be in the X-Men movies and then was also in the Power of the Dog movie during Andy and I's journey. And so when I heard about all this success that Andy was having as a coach and how he helped Sydney Sweeney and a few other people that I know from the film industry, it became evident to me that this was a very amazing guy. Then in 2013, after we moved to Arizona, my brother and mother and I took a trip to Los Angeles, which was the first time in like a decade, I believe. And then while we were there, we stopped by Andy's home and at the time, I was battling a severe soda addiction that began at 5 years of age and was horribly overweight. I was like 240 pounds for a 15-year-old at the time, and I remember Andy looking at me, a little bit stunned at how much soda I was drinking and seeing that I was horribly overweight. And when I first met him, the words he used to me were, he said, "Mate, you seriously need to stop drinking all that soda. I can see it's having an impact on your body." And I knew he was telling the truth, but I was like, it's impossible. And then
Yeah.
then afterwards we
Can I
just
ask you a quick question?
what?
Have you ever tried like, are you into like Croy or diet soda, or are you like
Nope.
mostly the sugar ones? Okay.
It was all and any soda I was addicted to. Like I've not had a single drop of it since March 6th of 2020, and I don't
Oh,
intend
wow.
ever to again.
That's amazing. That's quite. Is it mostly water, or do you drink Kool-Aid or juice kind of things?
These days I drink mostly water or some juice on occasion when my body needs it, but it's mostly water and electrolytes now because I've become a health fitness geek since Andy and I got together, you know.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. Yeah, when I first got into college, I definitely, I let loose. I could say, I'm still not, I'm still working on it, but like I was, yeah, I was going, I was going hard at the student, it was the dining hall, but it was like a buffet basically, and you could just come in whenever you want, but yeah, I definitely had to you know get better habits. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, after the Los Angeles deal, in
Hmm.
2015, after the very tumultuous years in high school and then in the
Hmm.
midst of my parental divorce, I sought Andy's mentorship after realizing that I would forever regret if I didn't ask for help because I just needed that leader in my life that my father was not really able to provide really.
Is that
Like I
was he
needed
from
someone that
Estes
could.
or was he well not from Estes, but did he live in Estes at the time or?
So Andy lived in Melbourne for most of his upbringing, and then when he got into acting, he moved to Hollywood in the Hollywood Hills, and from what I understand, that's where he contacted Cassidy, was from Los Angeles. And Cassidy, just like me, Cassidy had a couple interactions with Kodi, although I'm not sure if it was in person or if it was over Zoom, like, me.
Hmm.
I'm lucky to be able to say that I contacted Kodi once so far because, he's been so busy with his acting. He's the same age as me, and he almost won an Oscar for the Power of the Dog movie, and he also made an appearance in the Elvis movie a few years ago. And I remember going to see Elvis just for the purpose of watching Kodi's performance, and I was the only one in the theater, had the whole theater to myself. And then he was at the Oscars for The Power of the Dog, where he was almost winning that Oscar, and he came close by like 1 or 2 points, I believe, behind the scenes. But unfortunately, that was the Oscars when Will Smith clumped Rick Ross in the face. And I remember, this is what I remember about that. I
That's
remember seeing Chris Rock give the G.I. Jane remark on the television, followed by Will Smith laughing, and then the television paused for like about maybe a minute before it resumed. And I just thought it was just a usual TV glitch. And then minutes later, when Will Smith came on stage and everybody was applauding, I noticed that there were a lot of people that looked visibly upset with him while applauding. And I was like, why are they not happy all of a sudden? Why are they giving him like looks of frustration? And I thought for a split second that it might just be sour grapes of him winning the Oscar. But then right then and there, I got a notification on my phone from Andy, and what he wrote was, Will Smith just smacked the beep out of Chris Rock, mate. And I was like, because Andy was there at the Oscars just
Oh
watching
wow.
Kodi. And then I went onto the internet and it was already going viral. And I saw the video and I saw Cody's reaction, which was, he looked very stunned. And then I just was like, I just remember watching it and being like, yeah, Will Smith is in deep trouble.
Yeah.
And
Except for
then
he wasn't. Nothing happened, right?
well, he was banned from the Oscars for 10 years.
Oh, oh, that's true. Yeah, but I guess he didn't. It could have been if Chris would have pressed any charges or stuff like that. I guess that would have been worse. I wasn't thinking of any bans or stuff like that, but
I
yeah.
was I was concerned, although I would have agreed with it based on what was shown on the television, but I was concerned he was going to get arrested for assault. But
Yeah, yeah,
ultimately, but ultimately Chris decided to not press charges, probably because he knew that with Will Smith it was probably more reputational that would hurt rather than going to prison.
yeah,
So so
yeah.
that was a near career suicide for Will Smith. But I just remember being more disappointed about Kodi losing the Oscar, although very happy
Mhm.
for him that he got to that point. And then just the Will Smith thing was just sort of an afterthought afterwards.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's cool. It's a cool perspective to see that from, I guess, and get the live text from Andy. But and yeah, and then so how often do you guys record? Is he still recording with you pretty
He's
often, or?
He's mostly left it in my hands the past couple years, but he does give me mentorship and consulting, and he does plan to continue recording occasional episodes if needed, but it's just not as much as when we first got started. He just got started because he created the channel and left it in my hands in 2020 after I quit my soda addiction because he was inspired by that and made the channel, and then it became Are You Relentless and Unstoppable? And then afterwards, he just co-hosted for like 4 years before he stepped away to continue his acting because at the time, there was some union stuff going on that made it less likely for him to achieve roles at the time, which is why he did the podcasting with me for a while. And then finally, once that was resolved, he got back into acting and he's still doing voice work and doing voiceover work in Hollywood at the moment. But because he's almost 80 years of age, it's getting to that point, where it's getting to that point basically where he's getting requests for work that's only connected to like grandfather kind of roles.
Gee, that's all we have for Relentless and Unstoppable. So tune into the next episode to hear more amazing stories from amazing guests. This is Keith Scott from Sydney, Australia saying so long and I'm smarter than the average bear. Gee.